Buenos dias, good morning. Welcome to another of our inspiring conversations. Today, I have the honor and the pleasure and the joy to welcome Julie Hunter with us. Julie, is such a joy to be sharing this space with you. I was telling you before we started recording that I have been following you, your journey, your story, and your service for over a year and a half now on Instagram. And it's almost like a little dream come true today to be able to speak with you. Julie, for all of you that probably many of you know her already, but for some of you that don't know her yet, Julie is an endurance coach. She's a sports performance specialist. She is a certified personal trainer, and most recently a chronic illness movement coach, among many other things. And she is an athlete herself. And Julie, like me and like many of you in our audience, happens to also have to deal with chronic illness, among which is long COVID. So it's amazing what you do, Julie, and what you offer the world, even in the midst of your situation and your health condition. So I expressed to you already, also before we started recording, my admiration, and I want to do it publicly as well. I admire you. You are a source of inspiration and example for me and for so many others that are going through the same situation. So welcome, Julie. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you and share some of my story, and hopefully let others know that they're not alone in their journey, and that there is hope for a brighter future if things feel pretty hopeless at the moment.
Yes, thank you. That is the intention with these conversations, right? To share and to promote this voice of hope and possibility, because when we are in the midst of this very difficult situation with long COVID and other chronic illnesses that are so unexpected, right, and so sudden and so uncertain, it can be very difficult. So to bring a voice of hope is very important. And one aspect, I would love for you to share part of your story, whatever you feel comfortable to sharing with us. And I'd like to ask you if you could also tell us how was it for you being an athlete and all of a sudden being just not able to do what you were used to doing. One, for some of our audience that might not be so in touch with what happens with an illness like long COVID, for example, is that many of us develop a condition that is called post-exertional malaise. Tell me if I pronounced it well. Mm-hmm. Is that how you say it? So post-exertional malaise basically means, in human terms, intolerance to exercise, intolerance to movement. And don't think is like intolerance to running a marathon, is you walk a block and you crash. So that happened to many of us, and still after years, it's still happening. So how, if within your story, Julie, you can tell us, how was it for you as an athlete, as a coach of athletes, as a personal trainer, to suddenly not be able to do your passion and what you were considering your mission here was? So all yours.
Yeah, well, to say it short and simple, it was tough. I first got sick in August 2020, so 2 years ago. I had a mild case of COVID. I rested. I stopped exercising immediately once I started feeling sick. I didn't try to return to activity. I just really took it easy because I knew the potential for post-viral issues to arise, because I was coaching athletes who were getting COVID, and I needed to stay up to date on that research and the protocols that were coming out that said, athletes can develop myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart. You can develop asthma, ongoing fatigue, things like that. So I was aware of that and really took it easy. But even though I was resting, I still ended up with long COVID, which ultimately was diagnosed as ME/CFS. And post-exertional malaise is the hallmark symptom of ME/CFS, which is a post-viral illness, and that can be debilitating and last for a lifetime, if not several years. But there is hope for recovery. And knowing of ME/CFS when I first got sick really helped me to rest and pace early on in my illness so that things didn't get worse. I was able to take care of myself, continue working, take care of my dog, and all of those things were extremely challenging, but I was able to do them. However, after 5 or 6 months, when I started to feel the fatigue lifting, I began doing a little more. And that's when I had those episodes of post-exertional malaise that felt like I was dying. You get flu-like symptoms, you get pain. The pain was unbearable. And that was probably one of my worst symptoms and longest lasting symptoms, even when the fatigue started to lift. So, I went from training 15, 20 hours a week for several years in a row to struggling to walk around the block. So as cycling, lifting weights, I was walking long distances, doing all these things to stay active. And then I was struggling to walk around the block or up a flight of stairs. So not only did that take away something that helped me cope with stress, and make me feel accomplished and, boost my mood and keep me motivated, but it made me feel like I was failing as a coach. It made me feel like I was an imposter as a coach. I was working from bed, barely able to sit up and type on my computer. And I just started to doubt myself and my ability to coach athletes who were, racing and traveling to competitions and, preparing for things that I knew very well how to prepare for. But it was tough. It made me struggle in more ways than one. But no matter how I felt, how difficult it was to get on my computer each day, it was something that I ultimately, am really grateful for, because it kept me doing something each day. It gave me a purpose. It was something that I was passionate about. And it allowed me to continue working, even though there were a couple times where I was minutes away from emailing all my clients and saying I had to quit. I mean, that's how much I was struggling at times, but I knew it would get better. And I just had to put 100% of my effort and energy into supporting my clients. Just as I did for years and years, I didn't cut corners, because I knew that no matter what, that's what was going to leave me feeling good about what I was doing if I gave it 100%. So for a year and a half, all of my energy was put into resting to be well enough to be able to continue supporting my clients. So, even though I wasn't able to exercise for several months, or over a year, really, traditional exercise, I still had something that was allowing me to live vicariously through my athletes. I could experience joy with them. I could experience loss with them, and they trusted me, and that says a lot. And I'm really privileged to have been able to continue doing that work for the time that I've been unwell. And then, several months into my journey, I began experimenting with movement, moving my body in different ways, in small doses, not traditional exercise, but I needed something that was going to remind me of who I was as an athlete. And I needed something to help me, have a routine and ease pain and improve circulation, and all those things. So that is when I created my Instagram account, Movement with ME, or Movement with Me, if you want to say it short, or if you don't have ME, because it's really movement for anyone with a chronic illness, chronic pain, difficulty with exercise. And I, throughout my journey and experimentation with movement, I was able to start sharing that with others, and eventually launch one-on-one movement coaching. So in addition to working with recreational and competitive athletes, cyclists, runners, triathletes, I now work with the chronic illness population. And that's been really amazing and really fulfilling, and really fun. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where I started and where I am now.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. I always thank our guests for opening their hearts and sharing their story. It is not always easy, it is because I went through that. I know how charged it can be sometimes, and how much sadness and sorrow those parts of our story can bring. So I really appreciate your generosity sharing your story with us, and the beauty that has developed also in the midst of pain, because we can't forget that is the duality of this world of the form. There is horror, but there is glory, and many times it is simultaneous. And you and I and 100 million other people in the world have experienced the horror of long COVID and its repercussions in every single area of our lives. And at the same time, the possibility to develop service for others, to being much more compassionate human beings, much more whole human beings, to rediscover self-care, self-love, etc. We could spend hours talking about the hidden gifts of a crisis, right? But just mentioning and addressing what Julie just shared with us, I really want to recommend to everybody her website, her Instagram page, her Instagram account, which she mentioned is Movement with Me, or with ME. We're gonna be writing the contact information at the bottom of this video, wherever you're watching this. And I just want to read to you a little bit of what Julie wrote in one of her posts that I love, and that really describes and shows you a little bit more of who she is and what she offers. It says, I love sharing ways to listen to your body and adjust your movements and mindset in order to overcome doubt and self-sabotaging behaviors. It's rare that two individuals can tackle an identical program, and it would be even more surprising if they responded in the same ways. The approach should be customized, sustainable, and always holistic in nature. Between my education, work experience, and personal health struggles that have spanned the last 20 years, my brain has become an encyclopedia of knowledge. I love that, by the way. To most, it's irrelevant, but I believe that knowledge, and I believe too, could be useful in helping others with chronic illness improve their quality of life. So there we go. I love the little pills, the little capsules of movement that Julie shares with us. Her page is full of free value and free little routines of exercise, of stretching and movement that people like us that cannot be running and playing tennis or soccer or swimming or whatever can do with little to no harm, really. On the contrary, with a lot of support. So I want to encourage everybody to look into that. And this takes me, Julie, to the other very important topic that I wanted to run by you and for you to share with us. And it's something that you and I have in common as well. And is this passion for service, this mission to help others, to give something to others' lives. Tell me, what has this service-oriented life meant for you, and especially recently, what this creation of the movement with ME or with me has meant in your own recovery journey and your own healing process. For me in particular, I want to share with you and with our audience, service has been a life savior. When I was in the midst of my darkest moments, having lost it all, being so severely ill, I lost all purpose. My life stopped having any meaning. And it was the possibility to continue serving others what really pulled me out of darkness. So what has it meant for you?
Well, I agree that, service has been a life savior. It certainly gave me purpose. And I think back to the times in my life when I was feeling happy and healthy and balanced. And those were periods of time where the focus wasn't on myself. It was on others. It was me giving my time and energy to support others in whatever ways I could. And now there were times in my life where I put too much energy into others and I didn't have enough boundaries, but I was able to establish those over the years. And those were pretty much in place when I got sick 2 years ago. But getting sick helped me to make sure those boundaries were firm and in place so that I wasn't constantly worrying and stressing and taking on other people's emotions, because naturally I am an empath. I feel other people's emotions. And so when I was going through so much and didn't really have anyone to talk to about it, or anyone that really understood the level of physical and emotional suffering that I was dealing with, I just couldn't handle anything beyond that. So, that being said, I made sure that when I have the opportunity to work with someone, I am all in. That is their time, and I want to make sure that they get what they need and deserve from a coach. And I guess I can't stress the purpose aspect of it enough. It gave me a purpose each day. It gave me something I needed to do each day. I had a schedule. I structured my days, when I needed to work, how much I needed to do, when I needed to rest, how much I needed to rest. But really being able to share what I was learning, and have that help others who were going through the same things and just weren't getting the support they needed from their healthcare team, or friends or family. It's pretty special to be that resource when there are not many others doing the same thing. So yeah, it certainly is something that I consider a privilege. It's a privilege to be a part of someone else's healing journey while I am still in the midst of my own. Um, it's, I don't know what I would do if I hadn't have been able to continue coaching and branch out and start working with other people who were struggling with chronic illness. I don't know what I would do. I certainly would not be able to work another type of job if I didn't already have coaching. So, you know, with the added financial stress of living with a chronic illness, that's certainly something that I'm very grateful for.
That is beautiful. And I love how you present it as this possibility to weave self-care with service to others, because you share with us how you have created and designed your days around your condition and also around the mission of helping others. And that is beautiful, because we were also talking before started the recording that one of the great gifts of this of such a crisis is that it really redefines self-care, and it almost becomes an obligation. We don't really have a choice but to increase our levels of self-love and self-care, and that is something wonderful. And if within that you can carve out some time to what Julie was saying, sharing with others your own experience, and from her professional background, from all that knowledge that she has gathered all these years, apply it to the hundreds of millions of people that are needing resources of how to use movement in favor and not against. Because Julie says it all through, if you go to her page, she says it all throughout the account, and is movement, or exercise rather, is not always the answer. It might not be the answer, but that doesn't mean total sedentarism. On the contrary, there is ways of keeping the body moving and active without harming it. So that is the science, that is the art, and that is beautiful.
Yeah. And it, you know, it is an art, like you said. And every time I'm feeling stuck or feeling lost in a situation, I try to come up with an experiment. So I've treated my entire healing journey as an experiment, and I want to be able to share those results with other people who might not have the room in their life to experiment as much as I do, because I have this flexibility to work remotely and rest throughout the day, and I don't have anyone else to care for. So, you know, I have room to kind of fail and have a setback a little more than someone who is, you know, struggling to get through their workday or taking care of kids. So to me, experimentation is fun. It gives me something to look forward to. It gives me a way to plan in the short term, even though I might not be able to plan in the long term. So yeah, being creative is something I really enjoy, and I'm not an artist by any means. I can't draw and paint very well, but experimenting with movement and exercise and finding different ways to adjust goals and mindset, that's something that I've always been really passionate about and have really enjoyed doing.
Right. Well, I think I disagree with you that you're not an artist. There are many different types of art. And what you have created is, well, first of all, an expression of top creativity. And for me, it's an art to really develop ways in which we can move the body without harming ourselves. That is huge. And that for me is a work of art. I loved when you said, because I totally agree, that you don't know where you would be without the possibility to serve. And for me is exactly the same. And I don't know if you agree, Julie, but it becomes something greater than ourselves. I mean, it is already very difficult to just get up of bed when you're feeling so extremely ill. And if it is, I say just you, but it's already an enormous responsibility with just you. But if on top of that, you know that there are other people that are counting on you, on your knowledge, on your sharing, that are looking forward to what you have to offer, then that becomes an additional motivation. That becomes a motor, if you will. And again, I don't know if you agree, but what happened to me is just the idea of being able to touch one life would make this excruciating suffering worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even, even letting others know that they're not alone, or having someone that can relate to their struggles and know exactly what they're going through. I think that really means a lot when illness can be so incredibly isolating, and which it has been for me. It's been incredibly isolating. So to be able to connect with people all over the world has been amazing, and has really allowed me to feel a little less alone and a little more social when I don't necessarily have the extra energy to socialize and do those sorts of things. So that's another special part of it all.
Wonderful. I wanted to ask you, Julie, that the main focus of my work is emotional healing, inner work, and spirituality. So I wanted to ask you, what has been the role of inner work for you? What inner work understood as the set of thoughts and beliefs and approaches and attitudes towards life, that inner space from which we live and assume life, right? What has been the role of your inner state and inner work in your overall healing journey?
Well, when I first got sick, and at that point I didn't know how long this was going to last, but I said to myself over and over again, this is an opportunity to change parts of my life for the better. And I strongly believe that is true, and that being unwell has allowed that to happen. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm changing parts of my life that were stressful or unhappy, or just not in line with what I wanted my future to look like. I'm able to make those changes, and some of those changes might be mental or emotional, and some of them might be physical, or logistical. But looking at every setback as an opportunity to learn, to grow, is what gets me through it. And this is not my first setback, but it's certainly the hardest. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't take back how much I've learned and grown, because it's taught me a lot about myself and what I'm capable of. And it showed me that I needed to heal in so many ways, and I just wasn't allowing myself to feel and make those changes, before I got sick. So it's really been a blessing. As hard as it's been, there are so many positives to come out from this, and yeah, I feel like I'm not a different person, but I'm on track to be a better person. There's still parts of my life and my personality that I'll always have, but I am really setting myself up for a healthier and happier life ahead, whatever that looks like. I'm trying not to worry about it and
Right.
plan for once and just take things day by day and being able to be more present and appreciate everything that I have and everything that I am grateful for is what keeps me going.
I love it. I resonate so much with everything you say. And I just want to point out a few things. So you say, despite it being so hard, you wouldn't change it for anything. And I totally relate. I say the same thing. I have been going through the most difficult 2 years of my life, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I was reading in one of your posts that this episode with your health, the last 2 years, were not the first ones, were not the first episodes you had to deal around your health, and that you had to go through different things in different stages of your life, but that nothing had been as challenging as dealing with long COVID. And I'm sure so many people in our audience can relate to that. Really, dealing with long COVID is unbearable because, again, it doesn't only touch your mental and physical health, but all the other areas of your life. So it is so hard. And within that recognition, to be able to identify the blessings and the gifts is enormous. And that is what, for me, is inner work. You touched about that, recognizing the blessing in disguise, right? In the midst of hardship. You spoke about being present, being grateful. That, for me, is inner work, because it's what builds this inner space of openness, right? Of saying yes to life despite the horror, right? And when we are open and saying yes to life, then all the outer efforts, all the practices that we do, all the medications that we take, or not medications or supplements or whatever, then they can flow freely and work for us. Yeah, that. And the other thing that you said that I wanted to, what was it? Okay, this is the long COVID brain fog. Yeah, that was that and that and that. Okay, it maybe come back, but well
yeah.
or not. Oh yes, one thing that I also want to address, and it's something that I've loved about your sharing forever since I discovered you a year and a half ago, and it's you don't have any problem sharing the reality. So the day you have shared many days that have sucked. So there are days that you have felt frustrated and angry and sad and horrible days, and you go out and say, this is my face today, I'm going through a hard time. And this is also real. And I love that, because there has to be space, even if we work inside, and we try to be positive, etc. It doesn't mean to deny the pain, because some people have told me, oh, but you always seem happy. And it's like, oh my goodness, you have to know how many times I cry of despair and sadness and frustration. So there is space for pain, and there is space for anger and sadness. But simultaneously, and what I loved of that part of your sharings and your posts, is that you don't stay there. So you share the sad, and you share, today sucks, I'm feeling like S, right? And then you go back to center. You bounce back, you pivot. And with you, the ones that are following you. So we don't stay there. We don't dwell in the misery. And that is the invitation, dear friends. It is so valid. This thing sucks. We didn't sign up for this, or maybe yes, our soul at some level, in order to transform and growth, as Julie was saying. But anyway, consciously, we didn't sign up for this. So of course it sucks. But the invitation is, we don't have to dwell in misery. We don't need to stay in the victim role forever, because that is really not going to improve our quality of life at all. So the invitation is to, just as Julie was saying, stay as present as possible and living a day at a time. If a day becomes too much, it's actually almost like living a breath at a time. And that becomes more manageable, because in this very instant, in this very breath, there's really no threat. We're not really in danger. We are here, we are alive, we are well. So dear Julie, before we finish, I would like to ask you if you have any other message that you would like to share with our audience, with the people that are listening to you right now.
I mostly just want to emphasize that, it might not seem like it at the time, but there is hope and there is a possibility for sustained improvements. But no matter where you are right now, keep visualizing where you want to be. There is such a connection between visualization and being able to achieve our goals or what we see ourselves doing. And we have to believe it. We have to trust that it's possible. We have to be confident in our abilities and our body's ability to heal itself. And if it feels overwhelming or unrealistic to believe that you're going to make a full recovery, if you're struggling to get out of bed, focus on what you can do right now to heal your body and your mind, or be more content with where you are. Being content but hoping for more is probably the best mindset that you can have. So if this is going to be your life for a few years or forever, what can you do right now to make things a little better? And I think the first thing to do is stop waiting for an answer and just start controlling what you can. And a big part of that is going to be your mindset, accepting where you are now and doing what you can right now, and taking it day by day and making one small mental or physical effort to get to where you want to be. That's really what's going to allow you to move forward in life and not feel stuck and hopeless. And along with that will come the healing.
Beautiful message of hope and possibility. Thank you, Julie. I just want to say something which I'm sure you're going to agree. There is this wonderful author and psychotherapist in the United States that I love so much. She's helped me incredibly. Her name is Susan Anderson. And she says visualization, and this applies so much to what you said and to your background. Visualization is the physical therapy of the brain. So just as Julie invited you, amigos, please just keep that muscle, keep training that visualization muscle. Don't lose your vision, don't lose your dream. It is possible. We need to see it clearly, to feel it, and to believe in that possibility. Julie is behind you. She supports you. I am behind you. I support you. We are with you. We are going through exactly the same situation that you are going through. And we are also testimony of what is possible. So we're here for you. Thank you. Gracias, dear Julie.
Thank you so much.
For your energy, for your beauty. And thank you to everybody who listened to us. We're going to put all the contact details of Julie below. And I look forward to seeing you in our next inspiring conversation. Julie, don't go. I'm going to stop the recording and then we say goodbye. Sending much love to everybody.